My name is Joe Freemond. I'm a outdoor adventure photographer and food culture photographer and former chef. So my parents each were huge influences in who I am. My dad had friends that were chefs, and my mom was a really, really tremendous cook. So food was always a huge part of my life. They're both very much into the arts as well, and exposed me to a lot of art from a young age that left a pretty huge imprint on me, and I think was a kind of an unconscious inspiration for a long time.
More than 30?
Yeah.
All right, it's like 25 tonight or lower. I mean,
Yeah.
it said 27 at the lake, so.
Oh, did it
like
really?
20 here.
Oh shit! I didn't realize it was gonna be that
It's
cold.
dropping quick.
Yeah.
All right.
I think what I love most about photography is that at my core I'm often a collector, and the camera gives me a means of collecting parts of my own life. So the smell of this sagebrush is one of my favorite things in the world. I used to go on these canoe trips with my dad, and on one of those trips we flipped a canoe and everything got wet, and we had to dry everything out and laid everything out on these sage bushes and sleeping bags, clothes, all of it. And throughout that day, while it was all drying in the sun, everything took on the perfume of the sagebush. And now I have this like visceral memory of those times with my dad whenever I smell this stuff. So this sort of environment in Colorado is one of my favorites because I'm just always touching and smelling that sage. I'm a sucker for nostalgia, and it's something where I can always look back on a photograph and you're transported there, and it's something where you can try to freeze a little piece of time or save a moment. And I've found over time that the camera has given me a means of collecting pieces of other people's lives and then giving them back to them in a slightly new way, because it's the way that I saw it. Photography is this wonderful medium. Whether you consider a single photograph art or not is a whole other discussion, but I think it's a beautiful medium of collecting pieces of our lives and trying to make sense of what our lives mean to us. I think the biggest difference with cooking outdoors, specifically over open flame, is that it's a completely dynamic environment. When it comes to the open fire itself, it's like a fluid living thing that you have to relinquish a certain amount of control and kind of embrace a certain amount of imperfection. I love the fact that it forces me as a cook to slow down and appreciate the environment that we're in. In photography, you're most effective when you're shooting things that you know really well, from the perspective of it being second nature. So I know the techniques that go into making a certain dish. I know how people move around a kitchen. I know the communication that takes place. In kitchens, we often kind of call it the dance. And I know how that dance works. So it's easier for me to see parts of the cooking world and food culture in a way that someone who only comes at it from the photography side might not see, because they simply don't know it from that interior perspective. I stay inspired with my cooking and my photography work in ways where they kind of feed off of each other. I tend to go through, I'd say, more creative ruts with my photography than I do with cooking, and cooking is like this kind of North Star for me where I can always come back to it. And it is an opportunity to be creative multiple times a day, no matter how elaborate I might be cooking for myself at home or for other people in my life. Trying to combine ways of, again, using photography to dive deeper into food culture stories and histories, and also to showcase my own cooking in a way that I simply haven't for a long time. And so the camera has kind of given me a means of being more inspired to cook for others in a more public way.
right? At least there's plenty.
Often extremely contextual. The best meal of my life isn't necessarily about the most delicious thing I've ever eaten, but it's often about where I am and who I'm with and how we're sharing it together and how we're
Backcountry past.
sharing our lives together and telling stories, and that's what makes a meal something
baby.
really special. What I love most about cooking is that, to me, cooking is love. I think it is something where I think is one of the most tangible ways of showing love. To sit around a communal table and share a meal with someone is an intimate experience that is sadly something that doesn't happen the way that it used to on a very daily basis in today's society. And to share that is to share love.